Something I haven't mentioned before on the channel. For about 9 years, I was a field investigator for MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. I investigated UFO sightings. During the pandemic, a lot of our meetings were held online. And we had a couple presenters that are amazing, just amazing. On my channel, I want to share with you on my channel, on this channel, a few things. Down in the description, there'll be links to 1, MUFON, 2, co-MUFON, Colorado MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. That's the chapter that I was a member of. And then the author themselves. Enjoy. These are good presentations.
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to join all of you. It's a privilege, and the title of this presentation today is UFO Magical Mystery Tour, a pictorial history of lost, forgotten, and obscure UFO encounters. I've got today's date on here. One other thing, John, it's really nice to see you. Really nice to see you, John. Just give you a couple of brief announcements of where I got this information, and I want to provide this to you so that you can verify the sources that I'm using. I'm just not making this up. These are the sources of where I'm getting.
His audio went out.
Audio went out? Let's see.
I can hear him. I can hear him just fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could hear fine.
All right. You want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Continue. Okay. The visual aids used in this presentation are computer-generated forensic composite illustrations which originated from actual UFO case files and eyewitness reports. So sources are QFOS, 2457 West Peterson Avenue, NICAP, APRO, MUFON, Invisible Residence by Ivan T. Sanderson, which I highly recommend, Uninvited Guest by Richard Hall, David Marler UFO Collection, UFO News Clipping Service, Wendell Stevens Archives, Leonard Stringfield's collection, and of course the Gray Barker UFO Collection, and that's Clarksburg, West Virginia. That's where this information is coming from here. Now I want to kind of hit the ground running, and I'll see if I can get this down. Okay. I want to just kind of start here, and this is a little wordy. I generally don't read too much in these things because I keep it visual, but in this case, I think we have to. So I want to lay out the timeline here, and this has been verified by Don Schmidt. So you're getting the real thing here. And I'll start with this one. July 2nd, 1947, 11:59 p.m. That's when the crash actually took place because people heard a large explosion between the thunderclaps. And so we've got that time to very late July 2nd, 1947. July 3rd, early in the morning, it was rancher Mac Brazel and 7-year-old Timothy D. Proctor. They arrived at the debris field and discovered a large area of land covered by strange wreckage. They also discovered a gouge on the ranch measuring approximately 10 feet wide and 200 feet long. So it appears from what Don told me that the way they did this back at the time, back in the day, is if you were old enough to walk, you were old enough to ride a horse. So it was Mac Brazel and Timothy D. Proctor that actually got to the debris field that morning. So July 6, 1947, Mac Brazel drives into Roswell and arrives at the Chaves County Sheriff's Office to report the strange wreckage. He carried with him a small box of material recovered from the debris field. July 6, 1947, KGFL radio station manager, announcer Frank Joyce calls the Roswell courthouse looking for any late-breaking news. Frank speaks to Mac Brazel and relays the same story he had just told Sheriff George Wilcox. Brazel also drops a bombshell and tells Joyce they weren't human, clearly indicating he had seen something more than just crash debris. July 6, 1947, late afternoon, evening, Jesse Marcel and Sheridan Cabot drive from Roswell 519th Bomb Group to the vicinity of the debris field and spend the night at the Hines house. July 7th, 1947 in the morning, Jesse Marcel and Sheridan Cabot arrive at the debris field and examine the wreckage in person. July 7th, 1947, late afternoon evening, military arrives at the impact site and discovers a strange egg-shaped craft with a hull breach on the side. 2 dead alien corpses are recovered, badly decomposed and wearing tight-fitting silver-colored flight suits. Okay, 1 entity was discovered still alive. So bottom line is there were 5 bodies recovered, 1 was still alive. So 4 were dead. Special note, 2 additional dead alien corpses were discovered approximately 2.5 miles west of the impact site. An ambulance, truck, 2.5-ton 6x6 troop transport, 2 Jeeps, and a large lowboy tractor trailer participated in the recovery operation. Special note, there are reports that a crane from Roswell was used to hoist the unknown object onto the flatbed trailer. Reports from civilian witnesses who had arrived at the impact site before the military confirmed that the powerful floodlights were seen, indicating that the military had officially begun the retrieval operation. July 7th, 1947. Late in the evening, Mac Brazel arrives at the private home of radio station KGFL owner Walter Whitmore Sr. to do a wire-recorded interview, which was later confiscated by the military. Now, we'd love to get our hands on that, but that's probably gone. We're never going to hear that. July 8th, 1947, very early in the morning, 2 a.m., Jesse Marcel drives back to RAAF, which is Roswell Army Airfield, and then drives home to show his wife and son pieces of the wreckage. It is here that young Jesse Marcel Jr. discovers strange writing on the inside wall of the I-beam. And we'll continue on here real quickly here. July 8th, 1947, morning. This is the first body flight. There were 2 body flights. First body flight out of Roswell occurs in a C-54 piloted by Pappy Henderson. This flight was flown in the raw condition, and the bodies were exposed to the air inside the fuselage of the C-54. This flight flew from Roswell Army Airfield directly to Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. July 8th, 1947, 11 a.m. Colonel William Blanchard issues the famous press release that the military had retrieved a flying disc. July 8th, 1947, 4 p.m., military convoy consisting of 2 Jeeps, a large lowboy tractor trailer transporting a strange egg-shaped craft covered by a tarp, and 2 additional Jeeps following from behind are seen driving down Main Street in Roswell. The entire convoy was seen by at least 1 paperboy and multiple additional eyewitnesses. July 8, 1947, 4:15 p.m., military convoy arrives at Roswell 509th Bomb Group and drives directly into the east side of Hangar P3 Building 84. This hangar serves as the central command center for the entire Roswell crash retrieval operation. 4 dead alien bodies were laid out on the hangar floor with 2 child-sized caskets sitting nearby. A large wooden crate packed with dry ice was built to contain the 2 caskets in a desperate effort to reduce the stench of the rapidly decomposing bodies. I know it sounds gruesome, but that's what we're dealing with here. We've got reports from Don, who interviewed members of the 509th cleanup operation team, where when they got done cleaning up the debris field, they had to burn their clothes to get rid of the stench. That's the only way they could get rid of the smell. July 8th, 1947, B-29 Dave's Dream leaves Roswell and flies to 8th Air Force Fort Worth, carrying Jesse Marcel and pieces of wreckage. July 9th, 1947, second body flight leaves RAF and flies directly to 8th Air Force Headquarters, Fort Worth, Texas. This flight stays below 10,000 feet and is flown unpressurized. The cargo bay of B-29 Straight Flush holds the large wooden crate containing the 2 child-sized caskets inside. Special note, on the evening of July 8th, the large wooden crate was stored at Atomic Bomb Pit Number 1, protected by 2 circular rows of perimeter screens, until B-29 Straight Flush could be taxied over to accept its historic cargo. And then finally here, July 9th, 1947, multiple Roswell witnesses confirmed seeing Mac Brazel being escorted through downtown Roswell. He was brought to the offices of both the Roswell Daily Record and Roswell Morning Dispatch, where he was forced to recant his original statement. He was also taken to the offices of radio stations KGFL and KSWS. So that's kind of the overview of what we're talking about here now. Everything I do is visual here. So what you're looking at now is a photograph taken by Don Schmidt. This is, ladies and gentlemen, the exact location of the impact site. So this would have been July 2nd, 1947, what it would have looked like maybe on the morning of July 3rd. But you can see it's a barren landscape, a few bushes, some very slight low rolling hills, and that's it. It's featureless. It's very featureless. So what we want to do is we want to take you through a couple of the scenes and show you what it may have looked like to keep things visual here. So this is the morning of July 3rd, 1947. And we've got rancher Mac Brazel and 7-year-old Timothy D. Proctor. They were both on horseback, and they did see the debris field. They picked up some of the debris. We know that because Mac Brazel brought some of it into the sheriff's office, so we know he did that. And we've got the gouge that was about 10 feet wide and 200 feet long. So this would be the scene the morning of July 3rd. So moving on. Now, I believe this to be the most accurate depiction of what the crash scene looked like. This has been pretty much authorized by Don Schmidt. So here you see in the foreground, you've got an egg-shaped craft with a dome on top, and it was the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. You've got 3 bodies here that we've shown. 2 of them are dead corpses. 1 was still alive. They were wrinkly, they were squiggly, they looked like Casper the Ghost. That's how Pappy Henderson described it. He flew the first body flight out of Roswell. He described them as looking like Casper Ghost. They weren't green, they were white, almost pale white in color. There was definitely an ambulance truck on site. We know for a fact that this thing took place near the windmill and the water tank, so we've shown that as well. We've got the 18-wheeler lowboy tractor trailer there on site. We've got a Jeep on site, and then we've got military personnel that cordoned off the area. And this is one of the cases where civilians got to both the debris field and the impact site prior to the military. So it was kind of a new thing at that point. So this is July 8th, 1947. Now later in the afternoon around 4 p.m., a very interesting convoy had gone down Roswell Main Street, consisting of 2 Jeeps on front, the lowboy tractor trailer with a egg-shaped craft on top that was covered by a tarp, and then at least 2 Jeeps following from behind. This went right down Main Street. There were multiple eyewitnesses that saw this, including one paperboy who actually did speak to Don Schmidt later on. But this was definitely seen, and we got it right down to probably plus or minus 5 minutes. It was 4 p.m. on the afternoon, late evening of July 8th, 1947. 1897 Mystery Airship wave. I think it's important that we kind of start here. This actually took place in Sacramento, California. It was also seen in San Francisco, also moved on to Oakland, California. And what they reported is there were hundreds of reports of this strange gondola-shaped craft. It had an airbag on top. There was a 1 wing on either side, and it was shining down these brilliantly lit spotlights, like searchlights, very powerful searchlights. And it was total chaos in the streets. There were people running, they were screaming. There were covered wagons that were overturning, and it was just a complete chaos. People's, like I mentioned before, hundreds of these sightings took place, and they saw these beaming spotlights. People identified what looked like well-dressed, eccentric inventor-type people on the decks of these craft. They also reported big black dogs on these craft. They had a tail. Very interesting sighting. And this is kind of some of the original sketches that were seen. In many cases, these things were lowering down, you could call them anchors, And in a very few separate cases of daylight sightings of these craft, people reported that the quote-unquote pilots were wearing smoky-colored glasses. So this is all 1897 timeframe. Here's a couple of highlights. Actually began on November 18th, 1896 in Sacramento. Object cast down brilliant beams of light on the city before it moved it toward San Francisco. Eyewitnesses described the craft as about 150 feet in length with 4 rotor-like arms. In some cases, anchors attached to ropes were dropped from the mysterious craft and laughter could be heard originating from the interior. By 1897, virtually all the sightings ended. Here's a blow-up of what these things look like. And so somehow, somebody apparently was able to negate gravity in 1897. This is long before the Wright brothers flew December 17, 1903 at Kitty Hawk. So someone figured out something. It doesn't appear that this was like a hot air balloon. Something else was going on here. This is kind of an enlargement of what these beaming lights would have looked like. And then again, you can see the gondola here. There are reports that they figured out something called NB gas that quote unquote allegedly negated gravity. We'll go on to April 24th, 1964, Socorro, New Mexico. This is the famous Lonnie Zamora case. Now I want to highlight the fact that something interesting happened prior to Lonnie having his sighting. There was a small sighting, you could say, that occurred just prior to. There was a family on vacation. They're driving down kind of like the main area of Socorro, and whatever this was, an egg-shaped craft flew directly over their car, maybe at 2 feet altitude. They actually went into the Socorro Police Department and filed a report. And in the report, it talks about how they stated that you people really fly your planes very low around here. It's actually in the report. So it was soon after that that Lonnie started chasing after a speeder, and something caught out of the corner of his eye, and he got a glimpse of this thing. He gave up chasing the speeder, went about 1.5 miles down another dirt road over a hill, and saw this thing parked out there. Approximately 16 feet across, it was a light-colored egg-shaped craft. It had 4 pogo extended landing gear. It had an exhaust port on the bottom. There was a strange insignia, and then standing right below the craft next to it were 2 small-statured, quote-unquote, humanoid beings wearing these one-piece, tight-fitting, lightly covered, white-colored coveralls, you could say. Now, according to the Blue Book report, Lonnie Zamora was further away than he actually was. We believe he was within 24 feet of this thing. That's how close he was to this. Just astonished to see this egg-shaped craft. Here's the newspaper clipping, the New Mexican, April 27, 1964. This made news all around the world. JAL and Heineck did go on site to investigate as well. Now, I've got his drawing of the inscription. Now, there's a lot of mystery surrounding this inscription that you see on the side of this craft. So if you take the original insignia and you rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise, you end up with what you see here on the left, okay? Now, if you take that inverted V and you connect that small line, you end up with what you see here in the second part. Now, if you transpose these letters, you end up with CIA, which I thought was very interesting. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that what you're seeing here in this depiction is not the actual insignia. We know that from Ben Moss's new book that covers this entire case. So what we've been led to believe for over 50 years, all this time, is not the insignia. The correct insignia is what we see here. It was an inverted V with 3 hash lines. That is the correct insignia. And I talked to Ben about this. You know, like, why would Lonnie indicate something that wasn't correct? So here's the report I got back. This is from Not of This World, the 1964 Socorro UFO with humanoids, witness police Lonnie Zamora. I asked the question, why did Lonnie Zamora sign off on a fake symbol? The symbol was changed by U.S. Air Force Major Holden for the simple reason that providing a fake symbol, if any other cases came up and a witness reported the fake umbrella symbol, then they would know that the witness was lying. By Lonnie signing the fake symbol, maybe drawn by Holder, Lonnie was signing a contract with the government to keep his mouth shut on the symbol. It was country, God, and then family in those days. Email from Ben Moss. So this is directly what he states actually went down, and that's the reason why. Now, if you look at the layout here, you've got White Sands Missile Range, and on the upper left, you've got Socorro. So if you look at the boundary line, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at the boundary line on the upper left, kind of in the upper center, and then over to the left, you've got Socorro. Socorro, New Mexico is located within a stone's throw of White Sands Missile Range, literally within 5 miles of the test range here. So is it possible it could have been an early prototype? Certainly possible. Here's the details. Object was seen very close to the proximity of White Sands Missile Range. Number 2, object featured retractable landing gear. Number 3, UFO featured an inverted barn landing gear pads with sharp 90-degree straight corners. Number 4, a mysterious metallic slam noise was heard just prior to liftoff and departure. Was that a door hatch closing? Number 5, a second mysterious metallic slam was heard also prior to departure. Is that a locking mechanism? This is the question I'm asking. Number 6, a very loud roar was heard prior to liftoff, changed in frequency from low to high. And then a blue flame was seen coming from the bottom of the craft as it lifted off the ground. Now, John, you'll recall from your research that in the Cash Landrum incident, December 29th, 1980, Huffman, Texas, a blue-colored flame was also seen. So this is not indicative of a liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen. This is something else that produces a blue-colored flame. Not of this world. Here is the landing gear leg, and take a really good look at the enlargement here. It's kind of a rectangular shape, and it has a point at the delta terminating section toward the ground. And you can see the outline of what this looks like here. This is from the book here. It describes what this landing gear like, and I think it's very important. The outline of this landing gear is very important. It's got sharp 90-degree corners. It's got a point at the bottom. Here's an enlargement of what that looks like, and just, picture in your mind's eye what this landing gear leg would look like. So what I did is I did a SolidWorks model of this thing. Here's what the landing pad looks like. And if you do the drawing of it, which I've got right here, you can see the enlargement here. You can look at these 90-degree corners, sharp corners. Are we to believe that this is from an extraterrestrial spacecraft with these sharp 90-degree corners and a point at the bottom? You would think that what they would design would be like fully integrated, maybe circular, something that would retract into the bottom, and it wouldn't have these 90-degree corners. You generally don't see that in nature. This really screams of man-made technology. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just putting it out there as a possibility. Okay, JAL Flight 1628, November 17, 1986. This is on a flight from Paris to Tokyo over Alaska. And when people talk about this case, they never talk about the beginning part of this. What was seen were what looked like 2 Campbell's soup cans chopped in half with a piece of black electrical tape going down the center. It was about 150 feet across. There were 2 of these things, and it had these amber or red colored lights that were alternating as they were going back and forth, seen by the pilot and the co-pilot. And there was a point in this entire sighting that they got it on TCAS, so it's onboard radar. It was confirmed by FAA radar at Anchorage, and then also the military radar. So 3 separate radars confirmed this. And during this sighting, they were given clearance to do an entire 360-degree circle, and then these things stayed by the 747, which is just incredible. Here we go, Miami here, January 4th, 1987. FAA reviewing data from night Japanese pilots reported UFOs. newspaper clippings reported it as well. Here's his original sketch of what it looked like out the cockpit window. And then a little bit after the two were seen, something unbelievable happened. What could only be described as a mothership, twice the size of an aircraft carrier, came from the back left of the 747 that was viewed by the pilot. So here's Captain Kenji Teriuchi. He saw this mothership and he's describing it here in this picture. So I would think that our pilots are credible witnesses. We would want to trust their word. So it's important to consider the testimony of our pilots and military pilots. This is what it might have looked like as he was flying by. It's just a massive, you could call it Saturn-shaped craft, acorn-shaped craft with a rim around the outer circumference, at least twice the size of an aircraft carrier. All right, we're going to move on to the June 22nd, 1976 Canary Islands case. Now, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that this went all the way up the chain of command. We know for a fact that Hillary Clinton is aware of this case. Also, former President Bill Clinton is aware of this. We know this because this was sponsored by the Lawrence Rockefeller Foundation. They sponsored a best available evidence briefing document. And this case is in that briefing document that was handed to Bill Clinton personally. So there's no doubt about it. The Clintons know about this case. Now, the beginning part of this case actually took place from the deck of the Spanish naval ship Atrevida, 3 miles north off the coast of Punta Tinta. And this is in Future Ventura. Kind of hard to say these things here, but it was seen off the deck of this ship first, and they saw this white glow. Nothing really significant at first. But then the town of Guay, Gran Canary Island, and whatever this thing was, covered the distance of 85 miles in 3 minutes, approximately 1,900 miles per hour. There was no sonic boom heard. So that was the second part of this sighting. And what they ended up seeing, and I'm not making this up, this is in the report. Antonio Huneeus did the Spanish to English translation, June 22nd, 1976, Canary Island. This is by Michael Swords. This is what they saw. It was a 25-foot diameter, clear, transparent soap bubble with a platform. And then there were 3 pedestals on the platform with these 8-foot tall, humanoid-looking beings with an unusual helmet. They were wearing a red flight. It was very tight-fitting flight suit. There was a kind of a tube that went up from the center that had blue gas coming into this soap bubble. And so here's the depiction we had here. Gran Canary Island, there were 11 eyewitnesses, a taxi cab driver, a doctor, and his patient, 25 feet in diameter. So I asked the question, what are we looking at here? What is this? Who are these beings? Where did they come from? Multiple eyewitness case. This is a famous case that is in the Lawrence Rockefeller report. So that's just one that was in the report.